What's going on, guys? All of Blitzel here, back at again with another video, and today we have a complete strategy and matchup breakdown for Ditto Control. Ditto Control, after its I think it bubbled out top 32, after its good placement at the Atlanta Regional Championship, has quickly become one of my more favorite decks in format. I've made a couple other videos about them, and you guys have really seemed to like them, so I've come here to make a complete guide. So this is a very challenging deck to play. If you watch any of my other videos, you know I did not even come close to playing it flawlessly. So I just wanted to get this out there. First, we are going to go over my list row by row and tell you the exact reason and value of every single card in the deck. Then I'll break down the deck's main strategies, and then I will go matchup by matchup and show you how to best be able to handle those specific matchups. Starting off with a 3-2 line of Cinccino. Cinccino's make do helps us get through the deck quickly and also get our attackers into the discard pile. We have the one Snorlax for its Gourmandize ability, which also lets us fill our hand up to 7 cards, but ends our turn. I've recently bumped up to 3 of these because it's so crucial to get that turn 1 Gourmandize. So we just, in this deck's margin of error is just so thin, like we can miss 1 turn of attacking, and sometimes we'll just be too far behind to come back and win. So that's why we have to have that Snorlax for the consistency. Ditto is our main attacker. You can copy any non-rulebox basic Pokemon's attack from the discard pile, so we have all these small attackers that can be copied by Ditto. Yveltal is going to be the main one in the Lugia and Mew matchup. Its card destruction lets us get rid of special energies, and in that Lugia matchup, we're actually going to attack with the physical Yveltal, because Ditto is very easy to get knocked out with Stoutland. So then the Manaphy is a pretty solid attacker in just about every matchup. That Pulling Currents attack lets look at opponent's hand, and then put 2 basic Pokemon we find there onto their bench. So we can put unwanted Pokemon onto their bench and then gust them up later and potentially lock them into the active spot. We have Manaphy to protect our bench. Miltank just keeps our opponent honest, forces them, they almost always have to account for it, keep resources in the deck to deal with it. Starly helps us find our crucial pieces. That Keen Eye lets us search for any 2 cards, and Bird Keeper lets it attack for free. Sandile is for 4 energies, lets us discard the top 3 cards of our opponent's deck. So one of our main game plan is like using Roxanne, then using Jynx to gust up our opponent's active Pokemon, and then just using Sandile just to spam discarding cards from their deck, like while we have Galar Mine down, so they have to find a switching card very quickly, and we're going to be milling their deck. Morpeko is another way that we can force out switching cards. That Torment attack lets us choose one of our opponent's attacks, and they cannot use it on the next turn. So like V-Stars and most EMACs only have 1 attack that they're going to be using, so we can force switch outs this way. Regieleki lets us have infinite of all our supporters. Mainly lets us keep spamming Misfortune Sisters and matches where we need to mill those switches. Jynx lets us gust up one of our opponent's bench Pokemon for 2 colorless energies, so it's very great in that aforementioned Roxanne play, which will be definitely a viable game plan just for any matchup. Mawile for 1 colorless energy makes our opponent cannot retreat on the next turn. So if we can get an unwanted Pokemon onto the bench, like a Crobat or something, that our opponent can never attack with, then we can just use that Mawile just to spam that tempting trap, and then they never can retreat it. And also they might have the energies to attack with it ever, so they're just going to slowly deck out. And then we have the Eiscue for the Regis and Lost Box matchup. That block face is 70, and then basics can't damage it. So we stick a Wash Energy on it, and then it is pretty much unbreakable in those matchups. We have the Bird Keeper. It's a supporter-based switch card. It also allows Starly to attack for free. Misfortune Sisters helps us aggressively get through our opponent's switching cards, so we can use our Morpekos and things like that to make it so our opponent cannot attack or create a checkmate board state. We have Thorton, which is a supporter-based Pokemon recovery card, but also has some other niche like utility uses. We can turn like a Pokemon that's been in play for a turn into a Minccino and evolve it on that turn. It can be a second Miltank, second Manaphy, all in one. Roxanne for that huge Sandile Jynx play. It's just one of our main game plans. Peonia, because we have a lot of one-ofs that we need to gather prizes. Marnie for a little draw support for us, but also can disrupt our opponent's hand. Flannery is going to be getting her those special energies. Sidney is basically a staple in control. Definitely one of the most powerful cards in the deck. Let's look at our opponent's hand and discard up to 2 tools, special energies, and stadiums. So we're going to be using this against Lugia, Mew, Goodra, just about any matchup. And also has synergy with Manaphy, because we can use Sidney to check our opponent's hand. And then if we see that they have Pokemon in that hand, we can use that Manaphy and use pulling currents and put basic Pokemon onto their bench. One boss's orders to trap those unwanted Pokemon. Cyllene to make all our resources infinite. Serena is another Gust card, but also can serve as a consistency card. Yellow Cheer gives us infinite supporters and Pokemon. Quick Ball and Level Ball to get our guys out quickly. Nat so we can pick up our Pokemon. We have a lot of bad starters that we want to get into this card pile quickly. And also our game plan with Eiscue and Miltank does... we need to have no other Pokemon in play to effectively execute this game plan. Pal Pad gives us infinite of all our supporters, or gives us a way to recover supporters, and between Cyllene and Sonar, we can basically have infinite supporters. Rescue Carrier, because most of our Pokemon in the deck that we'd ever want to recover, like Minccino, Manaphy, Ditto, are all under 90 HP, so we can get them both back easily. I'm still very on the fence about Yell Horn. It's solid into Lugia and Duraludon, but I think Echoing Horn might be a little better. It's like Echoing Horn is probably the 61st card in this deck, and Yell Horn is probably the most cuttable card in the deck. I'm still very torn if I like Yell Horn or not. It is a nice way to force switching cards, but it's not like a hard lock like Morpeko is. Your opponent can still start flipping coins, and it's not always a free way to buy time. It's still, your opponent can still start hitting heads, and then you're going to still be losing turns. So Heavy Ball, because we have a lot of one Pokemon that we need to fish out. Playing Lost Vacuum, because Parasol is very annoying. Like, we can't torment a Goodra or Duraludon if they have a Parasol on. 3 Galar Mines to force extra energies to make it hard for opponents to retreat. Capture lets us get a Pokemon out of our deck when we attach it. So one of our main plays going first will be attaching a Capture energy to our active, finding Snorlax, and then retreating and use Gormandize. 2 Twins and 2 double Turbos to attack with all of our guys. We're playing double Turbos because sometimes we do not want to do damage with Torment. And then we have 2 Wash Water energies to use Eiscue and Manaphy's attack. So I've played a lot of games with this deck, and I'm still not completely sold on it that it's better than Eldegoss control. Some of your matchups are a lot less... you definitely have a game plan into a wider variety of decks, but it's not as concrete into those like specific meta decks as Eldegoss control. I'll get into those in the matchup portion of this video, but you're definitely not quite as consistent. This is a much funner deck to pilot, I'll give it that, but it's not quite as strong. I would not, if you were going to a tournament and wanted to play control, I would recommend the Eldegoss version over this one. If you're playing best of 1, I would probably recommend this version over Eldegoss because Sandile does give you a more proactive win condition, but both of them are very strong in their own ways. This one is just has a little weaker matchup spread into the big meta decks like Lugia, and your Goodra and Duraludon matchup aren't nearly as good as the Eldegoss one, but it's much funner to play, and against more oddball decks like Palkia, you do have a much more solid strategy. So now we're going to get into the matchup portion of this video. Alright, now onto the win conditions portion of this video. This deck is a lot more different than the Eldegoss build, to where the Eldegoss build has a concrete game plan it uses in every single matchup. This one, you do have like a game plan A, but sometimes you do have to go to plan B depending on how the game flows. It definitely does take a little practice to catch on to like, this is my window to use this win condition, like to give up on one and move to the other. So our first one is going to be Retreat Lock, and this is the most reoccurring one. We'll use Electromagnetic Sonar to aggressively spam Misfortune Sisters in the early game, and then try to find a spot to use Manaphy to put unwanted Pokemon onto their bench. Then we use Boss Orders and Mawile every turn until they deck out. This will be our main game plan into Goodra, to Duraludon. Also, it's a solid game plan into Lugia. So yeah, this is where Echoing Horn also can come in and be good, because if our opponent knows that our only way to put bad Pokemon into play is with the Manaphy, they can just pitch him into the discard pile. So I do really want Echoing Horn in this list, but the Mawile does make it so that they can't retreat, and if we already milled their switching cards, like Lugia maybe only plays 1 Bird Keeper, so if we can force like a Pumpkaboo or a Manaphy onto their bench or something that only can do like 20 per turn, we can recycle nets fast enough that they can never win the game, or just use like Flannery until they run out of energies, and then we can just go for a Sandile aggressive win condition. So this deck, like these win conditions are not quite as solid as the Eldegoss one. Like I only have so much space where I can explain them, and they kind of can change very quickly depending on the situation. It takes a lot of practice to recognize, like, okay, my opponent spent most of our energies, I can afford to start sandiling here, or I can afford to start using like Sonar to recycle Sidney or things like that. So definitely, if you're going to bring this deck to a tournament, definitely practice quite a bit with it, because it's a very hard deck to pilot, and being able to swap in between these win conditions, recognize your window of opportunity is definitely incredibly important. Our second win condition will be run out of energies. Pretty self-explanatory. We're going to use Yveltal, Sidney, and Flannery to aggressively attack our opponent's energies. We also can try to use Boss and Galar Mine to force hard retreats and to buy time. This will be our main game plan into Lugia and Mew. We don't have any Crushing Hammers, so like decks that rely on basic energies. This will not be a viable win condition, but this is going to be like our plan A against Lugia, and sometimes things can start to unravel, like if they can get a ton of value out of a Stoutland, or we can set up slowly, we might have to pivot to that retreat lock game plan. It's a pretty firm game plan, though, into Mew. It's pretty hard for them. That's one of our better matchups. Like with 4 basic energies, it's pretty hard for them to ever have enough energies to actually win the game. But yeah, that's run out of energies. And the final win condition we'll be going over is wall with blank. We'll try to get 1 wall Pokemon to play, Eiscue or Miltank, and then use Scoop Up Net to pick up all of our bench Pokemon. So into Regis and Lost Box, or Vikavolt in Miltank's case, we'll try to get a solo Eiscue, and then we'll just get the wash energy on it, and then start spamming Block Face, pick up all of our Pokemon, whereas Lucky can use Sonar to pick up those Scoop Up Nets, and then they shouldn't have a way to break through that wall. So as I said, Lost Box, Regis, in Miltank's case, Vikavolt. I'll get to the Vikavolt matchup in a little bit. That one's a little more technical, I would say. I am sort of concerned about Lost Boxes playing Temple or things like that, or Regis playing Yell Horn. This Eiscue is a lot less solid than Pikachu in that matchup, where Pikachu can take a couple of shreds from a Dragonite. Also, is putting a respectable damage output on it. Eiscue's just doing 70, so it's never going to win a battle with a Dragonite, so definitely sort of sus into that matchup. But we do have other ways that we can try to go about things, whether it be spamming Misfortune Sisters and trying to like trap a Comfey or something. So it's not all like, we're not just like totally bent on Eiscue getting us over the line, but we definitely do need Eiscue to get some value. We can't actually like act like we don't have Eiscue and then like Thorton into it later in the game and try to catch our opponent by surprise. But yeah, that is wall with blank. Alright, now into the matchup portion of this video. The first one I'll be going over is Lugia V-Star. Definitely probably our most intricate and hard matchup at the same time. We're going to try to run them out of energies, but also we can definitely pivot to that retreat lock win condition if things don't go well. We can use Cry Destruction. Definitely want to use the physical Yveltal, as I've mentioned before, to get rid of those energies early. The thing is here, where this sort of struggles compared to the Eldegoss build, is we can't put capes on our Yveltal, where the Eldegoss build can, and then you're just like, Lumineon Loop is such a problem. So if your opponent goes for that early, we have to use the Manaphy to break that Lumineon. We have to break that Lumineon Loop, and that's why I really need Echoing Horn in this list, like to Echoing Horn something else onto the bench, even if they drop it into this card pile, sort of make nothing safe. So then if that run out of energy doesn't work, like they can start Lumineon looping, and we don't have much of a response to that, we'll try to use Manaphy and then just gust that up and then start spamming Tempting Trap. And then if they have Bird Keeper, then that's when things get really tough because they're completely reset. But if they don't have a way to switch out, they'll at least be like stuck attacking with like Manaphy or Pumpkaboo, which would be like 20 damage. So we just have to chain a net every third turn, which with Cyllene is definitely doable. So if we can get to that sort of checkmate board state, then things are fine. But getting to that board state can be kind of tough. So definitely one we have to draw pretty optimally to win, and one where the Eldegoss build is definitely a lot stronger into, and it's definitely a very high skill matchup. So definitely test this one out if you're planning to bring this one to a tournament. Our next matchup is Mew. This one's a very simple matchup. We're just going to try to run them out of energies. They're going to be playing 4 double turbos and 4 double turbos, and maybe have Cyllene Pal Pad. So they need to have 4 energies to get 6 prizes, basically. So we do have Sidney, which can get energies out of their hand. We do have Galar Mine, which can also force switching guards. The retreat lock can be another win condition as well, because they might only have like the 4 cross switchers and maybe like 1 or 2 cards. So we can mill those out with Misfortune Sisters, make things awkward with like Galar Mine plus Torment. We do have to be careful of Lost City because we do play much thinner lines of our attackers than the Eldegoss build plays. So like if we can go like Flannery, Torment, Mine or something like that, and just make that can be a very strong play for you to go for, because then they have to find Stadium Bump, Switch, and Attach just to reset your attack. And also using Misfortune Scissors is very strong because they have lots of trainer cards like Pal Pads, Cross Switchers, switching cards that we do like to discard. This is definitely one of your more favorable matchups, one of the best matchups of the deck, and definitely one of the more easy ones to play against. Next will be our two Eiscue matchups. They're both very simple. First, we'll do Lost Boxes, Wall with Eiscue. We just get the Washington on Eiscue, get net everything else up, and then just block face them out. It's pretty much like, do you have it with a Temple or Dragonite? And sometimes they will, and sometimes they won't. We can, if we know that they play Temple of Sinnoh, we can like bench a Manaphy and put a Wash Energy on it, and then if they do have that Temple of Sinnoh and can Lost Mine and knock us out, we can then Thorton the Manaphy into the Eiscue and then attach it and start swinging again, and maybe they won't have a way to get through a second Eiscue. So that's like our sort of fallback plan. Is kind of not the most strong fallback plan, but it is definitely an option. The Dragonite build is incredibly hard to beat. You could try experimenting with Lost City, but I don't think the likelihood of getting 4 block faces off into that thing is incredibly unlikely without like Cape or something like that. So I don't think it's probably worth an inclusion unless you're playing like Flying Pikachu, which we don't have the space for. So if Eiscue doesn't work, like people are attacking that Temple of Sinnoh, attacking Dragonite, then I don't think this definitely makes this matchup very ugly. So if you're expecting a Dragonite or Temple of Sinnoh in also in box, I would definitely not recommend playing this build of the deck. Alright, on to probably our easiest matchup. This is Regie's. We're going to go for the Eiscue lock, just like Lost Box, but they have a lot less tricks that they can potentially use. Sometimes you'll see Yell Horn, but you could, if you know that they're playing Yell Horn, you can just overload your Eiscue with energies and then just like retreat Scoop Up Net, and then they have to use the sonar all over again, or you can use Bird Keeper Scoop Up Net. Just having your Scoop Up Nets around is just a pretty smart play in this matchup. Also look out for Rope Boss. I've seen that popping up a little bit more lately, so definitely keep an eye on that. Just sometimes before you've been able to like completely load up your bench, not have to worry about getting gusted, because they are probably just playing Serena to gust. But I've been seeing a lot more bosses popping up lately, probably in response to how strong Eiscue looks. So definitely watch out for that. The next matchup we'll be going over is Vikavolt. This one is definitely a more intricate matchup as well. We do try to go to wall with Miltank. We do have to be very careful of that Zapdos. That's usually their only way, aside from Radiant Greninja, to bust through us, but also Radiant Greninja is a pretty inefficient attacker. So aggressively using Miltank, and if I can, I like to use Starly to load up my hand early, to have like Boss, Bird Keeper in my hand. So then if they ever drop that Miltank, or drop the Zapdos, excuse me, you just gust it and hit it with Route, and like you almost force Judge in the early game, which sometimes can be hard for them to find quickly. Sidney, Flannery are both incredibly useful too, because they probably only have 6 total energies to attack with the Zapdos. They'll probably put someone early on a Vikavolt, so getting rid of those energies early is always great. And the Manaphy, I'm talking about the promo one in this instant, can be pretty nice, because sometimes they'll wait to drop the Zapdos until later in the game. If you can find a spot to use your Manaphy, sometimes I'll have to force them to spend extra nets just to pick up their board, or even if you can put down like Vikavolts or Ditto or Raikou or worthless attackers like that. Sometimes they'll just be completely bench locked without a space for that Zapdos. So definitely, if you can like Sidney and scout your opponent's hand and see that they have see that they have some of those more clunky Pokemon, definitely try to pull off that Manaphy play. I feel like this one probably has a better time into Vikavolt than the Eldegoss build, because also you have that Cinccino engine to fall back on. So I think this is definitely more reasonable with this deck, but still can be a bit tricky. On to probably our hardest matchup. This one's probably pretty close to unwinnable. You see a lot of things down on the useful cards. You kind of have to throw the kitchen sink at Goodra. Definitely want to go early Misfortune Scissors spam to get rid of those switching cards. A smart Goodra player, though, will just sit with one Goodra and play, maybe go like have one Comfey and play, have one Cramorant, but they're just not going to aggressively spend switching cards anywhere until they're ready to start attacking. So you have to use Morpeko to force switches out of their Goodra, and if you can find a spot, like Sidney's pretty solid in this matchup because you can discard Captures and Temple of Sinnoh. So if you can Sidney to bump those, or to get rid of those temples, and you see that they have like Zigzagoon, Greninja, Comfey, like bad things in their hand, definitely get those onto the bench and then try to go to all their switching cards, gust up one of those bad Pokemon, and then just Mawile spam them out. The reason why I say Sidney's good is because we can use we can use our Galar Mine, and they might have to use 2 switching cards instead of going like switch, attach, retreat. And then also, if you can, in the early game, if they're going to take it really slow, loading up a Mawile, or loading up a Ditto and start using Sandile, which can also mill switching cards. Parasol's a very annoying card that they play because it stops Torment from working, so we have to keep track of our Lost Vacuum. One of the most important cards to check for on your opening search. But they probably play 4 net and then probably 6 plus of Rope plus Switch, so it's very tough, especially if they manage the resources correctly. It's very hard to get through all of their Switch cards before they take 6 prizes. On to the final matchup of the video, we have against Arceus Duraludon, and our main win condition, I put down Retreat Lock. It's kind of weird. We have a very similar game plan as the Goodra matchup, except they have a lot less switching cards and can load up a lot less attackers. So if they load up their Duraludon on the bench, we're going to use like Flannery, we're going to use Cry Destruction, we're going to like try to take all their energy off their Arceus, and then when they have to go back into their Duraludon, we just use Torment over and over again. And they're eventually going to run out of switching cards. So we can use Misfortune Sisters in the early game to try to mill that switching cards. They're probably 2 or 3, and then just Torment, and then they have to set up another one, which is incredibly tough to do. Yell Horn's also nice, just make them start flipping coins, and if they ever, like, they completely run out of energies, you can just, like, Gust an Arceus and then start spamming Sandile. An alternate route you can go if you can Manaphy and force some extra dudes onto the bench, and then Gust one of those up, and then, like, you can go, like, Jynx or Roxanne, and then start using the Sandile play, and since they only play 3 switching cards, if you notice that they spent some early, can definitely be a good way to go about things. Definitely one of your easier matchups. The big Parasol can be annoying. We have to keep track of our Lost Vacuums, but not like they have so many fewer switching outs than Goodra. Like they play half the switch outs, and they're much more hard to move around. They don't have like a free attacker with 1 retreat like Cramorant, so a lot easier to manage. Still, the Eldegoss build has a much easier time into Goodra and Duraludon than Ditto, but this one is still very manageable. So that's going to be it for this video. If you have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer them down below, or any other decks you'd like me to feature more in depth like this. Please let me know down below. I think the final verdict on this is that if I were bringing this like OCIC, I would definitely play Eldegoss Control because it's a much more consistent and safe deck. Ditto Control, while it is funner, I feel like it's pretty shaky into those top meta decks. You can win those games, it's just not always easy, and sometimes like it's out of your hands. Like if you draw 1 turn too slow against Lugia, they can get that double dip Fangs. You don't have an easy response to it. So yeah, I'd play Eldegoss if I was bringing it to an event. I'm still going to keep rocking Ditto on ladder, probably playing it online in tournaments too. I might be playing this deck on the tournament this weekend on Limitless. I'm going to try to stream that. Don't know if I will be able to or not. But once again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And this has been All Blitz. I'll catch you in the next one.